All right, so moving along, got a couple people up still. Anybody for the taking? Andrew, Frank? Andrew from 11 Learning. So Andrew's the out-of-towner. He's here from Cambridge, coming to visit us on the South Shore.
There's tremendous culture shock. So my story has elements of what I will describe as sailor mouthiness. So near the end of the story, I think we've lost the baby, but near the end of the story, I will say fear about. So if anyone does not particularly want to hear anything profane, I'll just give you a little bit of a warning, or I might forget. So we'll see. But on the thread of recruiting and Rebecca's story, my story is about how hard recruiting is, and I think I knew that intellectually, but I don't think I really knew that. I didn't think it applied to me because, hell, I worked in recruiting. I worked for an HR software company, and I have on my name that I was the product manager for one of HR Technology's top 10 HR products of the year. Never mind that didn't actually exist, we just did some screenshots and sent it over to people and they believed it was real, but it is one, 2005, check it out. And I've hired people and I've fired more people than lots of interviews and so on. So I thought I was really good at recruiting, but as it turns out, recruiting actually is hard. It's especially hard if you're a startup and you have no name recognition and no ability to pay people other than in equity and nice stories. And you're trying to recruit someone out of an industry that you're also attempting to destroy. But we knew we needed somebody from the textbook industry, mostly because potential investors kept on telling us that we needed somebody from the traditional textbook industry. So after what we thought was a painful process of about 3 months, we finally found someone who worked for us, and that she was smart and funny and charming and had fantastic credentials, and also, very importantly, was willing to work for free. So she started, and that relationship lasted about 2 weeks because her idea of working for equity was that she was willing to work when we were able to pay her. So that kind of soured us in the whole recruiting process for a while, and we decided to take about 6 months off. And that was actually good for us because the stuff that we needed to accomplish in those 6 months, we didn't really need the third person for. We didn't necessarily need the expertise. We just needed to churn and get the stuff done. And recruiting was turning into a distraction for us. Also, it was an opportunity for us to figure out what we really wanted that third person for. And it was one thing for potential investors to say, you need domain expertise. I don't care if you've learned a lot and all this stuff. You need domain expertise on your team in order to convince me to hand over some cash. But we need to figure out what problems we need that person to solve. And so 6 months go by, and we write a job description, and I gotta say it's pretty damn good, because we got about 400 resumes in a period of a couple months. And keep in mind, this is for a position that pays nothing. So that actually might say more about the general state of the economy and the textbook industry than it does for our particular vision. But actually, it wasn't that hard to narrow down that list to something more manageable and a list that we could actually go through and process and figure out who was qualified and who wasn't. It was a process basically lopping off everybody who didn't have any credibility and lopping off everybody who, when I asked them what their experience with social media was, said, I have my girl type my emails for me. So we narrowed that down. We fairly quickly got to a list of about 3 people who we thought were viable candidates for this position. And I want to talk about one guy in particular, because the first time I met him in person, he pulls out his laptop and he opens up his laptop and he says, I've got this slide deck, and I know a little bit about what you guys are doing, but this is what I think you're doing, or at least this is what I would do, and this is how I would do it. And I gotta say, I went through the slide deck with him, and afterwards I realized that there were enough good ideas in there that I would feel a little guilty about stealing them if I didn't end up offering him a job. But that still didn't really seal the deal for me. It was the next time that I met him. He told me that he arrived a little early, and so I thought we were meeting at Starbucks because we didn't get office space until last month, actually. But he'd gone to Target and done a little, picked up some supplies and killed a little time and so on. He stopped his cart in the middle of the aisle, and he said he sort of laughed to himself and looked around and he said, none of you motherfuckers know that I'm going to revolutionize the textbook industry. And that's when I stopped and I thought, this guy's just, crazy. And who does that in an interview? And then I realized, that's the guy whom I want on my team. So that's the story about how I found my third partner.